Greetings to all of you from the NorthCap University and welcome to the NorthCap Masterclass, a series of talks wherein you get to listen to eminent thinkers, scholars and leaders sharing their perspectives on what is happening in the world and what it means to you as future professionals. Over the past 25 years, the NorthCap University has been a meeting ground of talented students and faculty. Our graduates are well accepted all over the world by leading universities and multinational companies abroad for one reason and one reason only. At NCU, we are first firmly anchored into the future. A glance at all the specializations we offer in engineering, management, and law powerfully illustrates this. From cybersecurity to artificial intelligence to data science to virtual reality to digital marketing and latest trends in law and jurisprudence, we cover it all. The same intent drives our recent collaboration with Arizona State University, the first of its kind in India in terms of coverage, breadth, and depth, all designed to bring you the latest education and give you a degree that will be valued in your hands for the rest of your working lives. Dear students, we live in very disruptive times. We no longer have to go to banks or to ticket counters of railways, airlines, movie theaters to buy tickets, or to mandis, shops, or hotels to buy things we need. All that happens digitally. Even doctors' visits are happening on our videos. The digital way of life is now firmly part of our physical existence, and there is no turning back. To successfully navigate the digital world is already a necessity for all professions, not just engineers. Today, we have with us a guest who will tell us what being digital is all about. He speaks to us from Miami, Florida, in the US, where he's based. Let me introduce him. Dr. Emiliano Diez is Head Product Development and Client Services at Cintana Education. He has 20 years of experience in higher education to elevate the way institutions meet the student needs and the society needs. As the head of cloud operations at Campus Management Corporation, he has delivered technology solutions to more than 1,100 higher education clients and maintained systems for more than 800 universities. Dr. Diez has previously worked at Laureate Education, performing several operational roles in education management and technology leadership. He has an MBA from University of Liverpool and a PhD cum laude in economics and business from Universidad Europea de Madrid. Today, he will speak on mastering digital skills for all disciplines. Emiliano, welcome to the NorthCap University and over to you.
Right. Thank you so much. It is truly my pleasure to be today with you through this, again, digital means. This cannot be a more clear manifestation on how our society has evolved in the way we interact. So today, I would love to truly interact with the audience in this new fashion, talking about digital skills not only for technology individuals, but for every single one of us, for every person on every industry. And we're going to go from how the innovations in digital has transformed our lives and our interactions and the industries to some of the more core digital skills that pretty much we all use on a regular basis, to more specific and advanced skills that are leaning towards specific skills of the future. So let me start by asking you to think of an industry. Think of an industry that you believe has not been affected by technology in the last decade or two. It's really hard, because even if you truly believe that there are none, every industry has been affected on the way they do things. Let's start, just pick up a few. Think about, entertainment. Massive changes in entertainment, from the way we used to think. Well, it used to be TV, it used to be going to the movies, live theater, and though those things still exist and they're still are vibrant, the actual majority of the consumption of entertainment has changed to be truly distributed, mobile-based, streaming services, and even crowdsourced content. Today, between social medias, TikToks, Instagrams, you name it, the actual amount of content that is consumed, produced by peers or entrepreneurs of entertainment like tubers, is a meaningful fraction of what used to be produced by massive studios. Choose anything else. Transportation. You go out, yes, you can still hail a taxi or take a bus or a tuk-tuk in India. And yet, in many occasions, you're going to be calling a Lyft, an Uber, or whatever is the equivalent service in your countries. And that has been truly transpired globally in very, very few years. The speed of adoption of these technologies is faster and faster. So it takes less time from a concept to a full deployment. This concept of disruptive innovation, where a new idea at the beginning is slow, it might be a little bit kind of inadequate, but starts to make a noise, and suddenly it takes over and truly makes a transformation. I want to take you to some other industries that might not be as obvious and how they've been affected by technology and digital, but have and will continue to be deeply, deeply transformed. One of them you might think is completely out there, but even agriculture. Today in the United States, only less than 2% of the population is dedicated to agriculture. Yet it's an exporting country of agricultural products. And that is thanks to automation and technology in digital capacities around weather, engineering of the crops and their capabilities. So while we don't see it as general consumers, there's a lot of layers beyond what we interact that are affected by technology. And probably that takes us to even retail, where the Amazons of the world and the many other meaningful retailers, digital retailers across the globe are truly taking the shape, taking the place and reshaping the behavior of the consumers. There is no industry that has not been affected. Therefore, whatever is that you think you're going to be doing for your life, you are going to be embedded, you're going to be part of an ecosystem that is very symbiotic between humans and technology, and that occurs via digital means, and even the interaction between humans. So there is no place without technology. There is no exception to this rule. We all have to live in this new world, and it's exciting, it's accelerating, but it also takes some proactiveness on our part, not only to be ready, but to be in the right mindset to not only accept and adopt, but truly thrive in this new planet. With that, let me move into digital skills. Digital skills is a very big label. It's an umbrella. And people might think about digital skills in different ways. Some might think, oh, digital skills are technical skills for engineers to do. Digital skills is what I use every day as a CEO, as a general manager, as a marketing director, as as a head of a law department in a lawyer studio. We all use technologies in different ways. So I will try to cover today a different spectrum of digital skills so we can understand, adapt, adopt, and thrive using these skills. Hopefully, this will inspire some of you to be ready, to be energized, and to truly not only not be afraid, but be excited about it. I want to start by the bundle of what we used to call soft skills. As any job or career or even program of study at a university does, you have your very concrete specific skills. So if you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be learning very concrete elements about the specialization, either in technology, mechanics, aeronautics. If you're going to be a business leader, you're going to talk about finance and marketing and human resources and leadership and all the very specific business areas. But also, more and more employers for a long time has been saying that the technical or specific skills are almost a given. And what makes a difference in a good employee or a good leader, or even in a good entrepreneur that is not hired by anyone but creates their own company, are soft skills. What I mean is communicate, work together, how to drive priorities. And we used to think about these elements as human elements. Communications is, how can I let myself be understood and how I can influence others, yet how I can understand what is being transferred to me. Guess what? Today, the majority of the communications across humans is done via electronic means. Even, obviously through this pandemic, COVID situation has forced us to adopt a much higher level of digital communications than before, to the point that for meaningful periods, we moved to almost 100% electronic communications, digital communications. So when you communicate digitally, you require additional awareness because the replacement of these face-to-face interactions is not as linear. Even through video communications, the context and the elements of communication change. Yet nowadays, digital skills in communications are not limited to video communications or just communications, email is prevalent, but even especially around collaborative group teams or other ways of team communications, where there are interactions that are not just one-to-one or one-to-many, but truly are communications about many-to-many. And these areas of collaboration, if you think are only for execution groups, you will find out that's not the case. We see more and more management and senior leaders of all disciplines, of all industries, really engaging in these types of communications. So from doing Zoom for all the employees of a company, to communicating via email, to communicating via these chat forms or forums like Slack or Teams or other technologies, all tiers and all levels of the employees are really engaged in these mediums. And they require awareness. They require understanding of, if I'm writing something, it's not the same as if I'm saying something on a one-to-one communication. Those communications are usually stored. That means that we have to be aware of the sensitivities that, how we communicate or a group. Those communications usually have less opportunities to interact in some cases. So as we evolve into a digital world, communications that used to be, oh, that's a human aspect, it's really enforced by a digital skill. So now moving on to other skills, and I'll go a little faster on some of these. Teamwork, another typical soft skills. How can you work good with others? Again, through the interaction on digital tools. If you are a marketing analyst, if you are an HR leader, and you need to create the sense of community of work, a community with your peers, with other divisions, many of those interactions are done through digital means. So how can you actually develop teamwork through digital skills, through digital means? It's going to be very, very important. And this takes me to leadership. How can you motivate people? How can you drive your teams, your peers, and even your superiors? When I'm talking about leadership, I'm not only talking about leadership of the people that reports to you. I'm talking about leadership on a 360 way, where you become a leader of your employees, your peers, and your superiors, driving your mission forward. And how can you lead, motivate, drive, and create that energy when most of the interaction is through digital means? Well, there are ways. You have to be aware of how to use all these different tool sets. I'm not going to get into the specific tools because the tools change, the tools move, the tools adapt. It's scary how fast all these things move, but it's also very encouraging how easier and easier these tools are to adapt nowadays. So I'm going to move to one area that is becoming a real challenge in the digital world, which is prioritization. If you think about the amount of information that we used to manage 20 years ago is a very short time for the world and for the industry. But think about 20 or even 10 years ago, the amount of interruptions, data, and interactions that you used to have in a day. And I'm going to take a little bit of a time to share an anecdote, a personal anecdote here. I started my career in a company that used to do paging, a thing that doesn't exist almost anymore today, which are devices that send numeric or text messages. That's all they used to do. And I recall very vividly that we used to manage an average of 30 messages a month. Now today, it probably takes 30 messages every 10 minutes. So the amount of, the point that I'm trying to make is the amount of input that you're having is overwhelming. So the ability of filtering and prioritizing what is important of that input in order for you to be able to focus on an activity and actually produce an outcome, it's becoming extremely challenging. And it's a skill that I recommend you consciously deliver. We all know how many different inputs you have today: email, social media, messaging, WhatsApp, or whatever equivalent application to WhatsApp is nowadays, plus whatever corporate messaging system you might have, plus some people even have a phone. That's, we're very soon to abandon those, but those still exist. Regardless of the medium, you have to be aware of protecting your own time and knowing, okay, for this period, I'm going to really focus on this particular activity, and I'm going to selectively attend different type of inputs or ignore different type of inputs in order to get things done. Sometimes meetings helps on that, because you go into a meeting and you kind of pay attention to whatever is going on. Sometimes don't. People multitask or use the excuse of multitasking to get distracted. So prioritization and focus is a human skill that is truly required in a digital era. So those are very generic skills. I'm going to move to more digital specific skills that we all use nowadays, and then move to some more advanced specific skills. So some generic digital skills, one of them is research of information. It's very important, no matter what you do, of course, if you're an academic, but if you're in any type of job from market research, which requires a lot of investigation, but any type of activity, if you're a business leader, if you need to research a specific law or cases, how are you going to research, cases on law and or a business or a competitor or data? You are going to use digital means. And yes, we all know it's like, yeah, just go to Google and search, but that's quite basic. You need to make sure that you go to the right sources, that you validate your sources, that you compare with different type of sources. You need to be able to actually compile sets of data. And data is not longer just small sets of text. Now data has taken many shapes and forms, from documents, which are easy and manageable like PDFs, but you might have data sets that are publicly available. If you go to many government entities now, they have massive amounts of data sets that you're able to download and manipulate. And that requires a complete other set of skills on how to really get that information and process that information, which will take me to data processing later. But let's say in research, just finding out the right information, validating that information, and being able to at least manipulate the data of those sources of information is a digital research skill that, if you think that's used only by researchers or by employees that are designated for that, you will surprise yourself. Every level, from senior to junior, every industry, from business to law to agriculture to transport, uses these type of skills. So research, digital research at different levels is something that every single one of you is already doing and will need to be doing at much deeper levels. Of course, there will be people that are going to leave and specialize in research. And of course, those individuals will develop a much higher grade of proficiency in these capabilities. But every single one of us, we're all doing it. So we gotta be ready, and we gotta get better at that. Another skill is content production. So it used to be that you can delegate a lot of the content production to specialists. If you want graphic design, if you want a very particular material produced or edited, you send it to specific writers. Yet nowadays, more and more, the ability for individuals to produce their own content has increased, thanks to the facility of the tool sets that are available and the realization that we're all into these type of activities. So more and more, management produces their own presentations, and people produce their own writings, and even in digital means like social media, people produce their own contents. Videos are now produced by pretty much every single individual, more on the consumer-based, I would say, but on the business-based, more and more people are producing videos, from being more comfortable in camera to being more comfortable with tools that can help produce videos. So content production as a skill, as a digital skill, is something that, again, we will all use, and we all use it at different levels. I think there is no escape to the fact that we all need to, at a certain grade, at a certain level, produce our own content, produce our own research, and we need to be skilled to do those elements. Another generic skill is sometimes called social media, but I think it's more about public speaking. So think about social media and public speaking. Public speaking used to be very verbal, used to be very, event driven. You can write a piece, you can actually speak in public. Well, nowadays in social media, that becomes almost a continuum. And well, we might say it's like, oh, I'm not into social media. It's like everybody is into social media, because you will be pulled into it either at personal level or you will pull at a professional level to either promote your company, promote your services, or interact with your audience. Your audience more and more is in this type of social interactive channels. And you have to be aware of how to interact the same way that you used to learn how to speak in public. Well, we all now need to learn how to speak in social networks, because the way that you project yourself and you project your entity or your company or your mission or your non-for-profit or your government department truly creates an impact. And it's a dangerous area. It's an area where small comments can be taken out of context and can create a very powerful positive impact or a very disruptive negative impact. So social media interaction, think about it not as a social skill, but as a business skill that needs to be mastered in order to be able to drive any type of job or company that you manage or that you participate in. So that was a long list of different skills that truly apply to everyone, and we all live. And even though some people might be completely early adopters and say, of course, I do that every day, and others might be thinking, well, that's not really for me. There is no escape. We're all into this, and more there will be more skills and more things that we do. I want to move now to some more specific digital skills that might sound very, in some cases, sophisticated or profound or specific, but truly are affecting so much every industry that even people that are not at the specific skill set should be, if not proficient, very aware of the capabilities and the impact that this might cause. So let me start with probably the most disruptive of them all, which is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a very buzz term nowadays. It's people sometimes, as any buzz term, overuse it, use it incorrectly, apply it to things that are truly not artificial intelligence. Yet, while we are probably in the early stages of adoption of artificial intelligence, as any disruptive innovation, at the beginning, these innovations are usually laughed or ignored or considered, oh, don't worry, that will never happen. Yet, how far away are we from completely autonomous driving? There are today public transportation options here in Phoenix, Arizona. There are pilots of Waymo, which is one of the self-driving vehicles companies that are today able to transport passengers 100% autonomous. They're all also pilot in Vegas. So from those pilots to become a reality and to become a mainstream adoption and to become adopted around the world, how fast is that going to be? Is it going to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? We don't know exactly, but it is happening. The fact that vehicle drivers are being replaced by technology is unequivocal. Of course, we all believe, well, maybe in developing economies, we might think that will never happen. Well, it will eventually happen at different speeds and with different levels of penetration. That's just to cite one example of artificial intelligence applications, but let's go to another one very particular to the industry in India, which is customer service. Nowadays, the chatbots, as we call them, are being adopted pretty much everywhere. And for the most part, we all hate them. You just go to a chatbot, they don't solve anything. They're a problem, they're a pain. You just try to bypass those things to get to an agent. So we can laugh at that. Yet, as any disruptive industry, it's going to get better and better and better quickly, to the point that any type of customer service interaction, no matter the channel that you can use a chat, you can use a messenger, you can use email, you can use a phone conversation, you can use a video conversation. You will be interacting with an artificial intelligence engine, and you will not know that you're interacting with an artificial intelligence. And that will replace a meaningful part of the jobs that are nowadays transactional by humans. So what is the good story about this evolution? Like any type of evolution, it replaces certain jobs to create new opportunities and new service opportunities and new production opportunities. Just like agricultural automation eliminated a lot of jobs, just created a whole industry set, artificial intelligence will start truly affecting the way we interact with our medium and replacing a lot of the human interactions. So it's an industry that we need to very closely monitor, and it's one where skills can be adopted at many, many levels. So you might think that if you're not a software engineer, AI is something that you don't need to know anything about. That cannot be further from the truth. If you are going to lead a business, you have to understand what areas of your business either you can optimize using these tool sets, or you have to be aware not to be disrupted by your competition that might be adopting these tools. So you need to be aware of their capabilities, their implementation consequences, and how they evolve and how they are innovative. And this goes all the way from a lawyer studio on how you're going to serve your customers. Believe me, more and more, if you think that areas like medicine, that is a very traditional area, you think it's like, well, yeah, the doctor's function is, it's a very human thing. Well, guess what? That's not the case. Nowadays, there are many tools for diagnosis that are proven to be equal, if not superior, to primary care doctor interactions. Most advanced surgeries, actual surgeries of cutting a patient, the most advanced ones are now being done in many cases with robotic intervention. There's a particular robot called Da Vinci 2, which has a stellar performance record on the number of surgeries that they do without failure. So where's the role of the doctor? Well, it's a different one. Now, instead of cutting the patients, they are actually understanding what needs to be done in that patient, interacting with the diagnosis tools and the robots to make that interaction. That applies to every industry. Law will be deeply disruptive, but artificial intelligence, from understanding what a case needs, to understanding how those can be routed, to preparing of writings, every industry will be affected. So please don't think that AI will not reach your industry. It will reach every industry. That's probably the most disruptive, the single most disruptive technology, closely followed by quantum computing, but that's very deep into the technologies. I'm going to put that aside. Let me go to 3 or 4 other specific digital skills that you should be aware, probably disruptive enough, but not as much as AI, but super important to mention. And one of them is digital marketing. It used to be that marketing was, hey, there is marketing, and then as a sub-specialization, you have digital marketing. Then it used to be, well, there is no difference between marketing and digital marketing. It's just all marketing, and it happens digitally. Nowadays, you would say that there is almost very little what we used to call traditional marketing, and the huge majority of the marketing activities are in digital means. And this is not only placing digital ads, this is about understanding your audience, using data points that you have through your user journey. This is about understanding your consumer behavior, doing market research through digital means, producing materials in digital formats, testing materials through digital reactions, and placing materials through digital means. All these activities, every single one of them requires digital skills. And no matter what industry you are going to manage your digital, your marketing through digital means. So if you're an entrepreneur, guess what? What's the first thing that an entrepreneur does? It's going to open a website. It's going to open a social media presence. It's going to produce materials to be known. Every single of those activities is a digital activity. So digital marketing, while it might be perceived as a very specific skill, is something that, especially on entrepreneur areas and especially in management, you have to be extremely well versed, no matter what type of company you manage, from a lawyer studio to a small shop to a whole multinational corporation. Another area of specific deeper digital skills is analytics. Analytics sometimes is called business analytics, digital analytics. Sometimes it's called big data, to put a fancier name. At the end of the day, is the ability to transform data into useful information to make decisions. And that sometimes used to be, it's nice, oh, I'm going to delegate that to, data crunchers. Well, nowadays, there is so much information that that's no longer enough. You need people that are capable of crunching massive amount of data, but you also need the business and analytical skills to understand what data sets are you going after and how are you going to really analyze those data sets and how are you going to produce useful outcomes. So from a business point of view, what type of KPIs or key performance indicators are you going to shoot for that are useful to your business to move ahead, to how can I influence the next product set as a product manager based on consumer behavior, to how can I serve my clients better if you are any type of service organization. All of those will require analytics. And the analytics can be sometimes very sophisticated and terabytes of data. It sometimes can be very straightforward. We as individuals now have the capability of going to sources, downloading the sources, and processing information at capacities and volumes that are meaningfully bigger than they used to. So this goes all the way from simply reading reports to processing data in Excel or spreadsheets to using some type of data processing capabilities, maybe something like a little bit more specific, like a Power BI or a Cognos or a Tableau, to much more sophisticated means. No matter what level of sophistication you are, the concept of data analytics is a skill that you want to get understanding on how it works. And then I'm going to go to two of the more technical specific ones. Just to wrap this up, one of them, of course, coding is still relevant. Coding used to be the, oh, you're a coder, you're just a software engineer, you're in a box. It's totally, absolutely the opposite. Many of the managers and leaders of industries today have a coding mindset, because at the end of the day, it's simply another language. So think about, yes, if you're able to speak multiple languages, you have a wider capability of communicating with people. Well, coding is just a language on how you communicate with computers. So it doesn't matter really if you are actually implementing or doing that. I started my career as a coder too many years ago. And though I haven't coded in decades, yet my mind still is able to interact with systems and solutions, understanding how they work. So applicable or not applicable to your everyday work, it's something that it's very important for pretty much everybody to have at least a good understanding. And probably the last one that I want to highlight, because I made a very long list, is user interaction, UX, user interfaces, user interaction. At the end of the day, wrapping all this talk that we had today, we are increasing our interaction with technology as humans. So humans and technology connect and interact, and even humans and humans interact through technology using these tools. So as we evolve into these skills, the ability to use, but also improve and create better human technology interactions is one of the paramount abilities to make your product or your solution better, from how a customer will interact with your company to how your product will be perceived once that, if it's a wood, if it's an actual physical product, when they unbox it, when they touch it, when they feel it, and if it's a service, when it's experienced, all that really is truly affected on human-computer interactions, and UX in particular for those of services and applications. So that's an area that I want to highlight as a very important skill. Might be perceived as specific, but we all notice. When you get good service through an electronic mean, you notice. When you get bad service, you notice. So be aware, be conscious about it, because we will all use it. So I want to wrap up this conversation. I think I spoke a little bit fast and about many, many things, but I wanted to take you all the way from digital affects every industry. There's no escape to it. We as individuals, no matter our hierarchy, no matter our role, are bound to work, interact, adopt, adapt, and thrive through digital means. And we have several of those skills that are very generic to those more advanced and specific. And the more well-versed you are in each one of them, the more round professional it's going to make you in the future.
Emiliano, thank you very much for taking us through the very complex world of digital technologies and what it is doing to us. To technocrats or technically oriented people like me, it looks exciting. To somebody who's technologically challenged, this may be troubling, the kind of changes that we're talking about. How difficult is it for somebody who's daunted or intimidated by technology? How difficult is it for that person to adjust?
I think the biggest challenge is not the learning of the skill, but the mindset and the predisposition about those skills per se. I do not want to exaggerate, but if you go back, and I'm going to go back now a very, very long time, when any type of new element was introduced to society. Think about writing. At the beginning, a lot of people did not know how to read and write. And some people were more skilled in it. At the beginning, the scribas were just technicians. Oh yeah, writing is just for very specific people that all they do is just write. And the thinkers did not write. Of course, that changed, centuries or millennia ago. And now anybody who doesn't read and write is simply not a person in society. Like, it's a challenging for society. I do want to recognize we still as society have challenges in adoption of literacy. But nowadays, technology is getting into the same space, where at the beginning, if you think about technology 20, 30 years ago, it was, oh yeah, that's for very specific people. Well, nowadays it's for everybody. And very, very soon, if you really do not handle technology, you will be excluded from many of the activities. So I don't want to either increase anxiety on those that might be afraid of or challenged, but I want to invite you to think about technology not as a different thing, not as a specific element. You don't need to learn technology. You need to learn how to communicate. You need to learn how to do content, how to do research. And these are simply the tools that you're using. The same way that we learn how to use a hammer instead of a rock. Now you're going to use data processing tools instead of just reading text. So you have to think about it in a very different mindset, and then it will be very, very inviting. And the nice thing about it is that the tools are becoming easier and easier to use. So while it used to be a very challenging word, and particularly me as a very early adopter, I somehow liked the pain of early adoption, and the tool sets used to be extremely painful, from installing an operating system to managing anything else. Nowadays, you can, for example, let me cite a very concrete example. Editing video used to be a very, oh no, you need like a Mac and you need these processing powers. Nowadays, you get your phone, you can record a video, you can put an introduction, an overlay, and you can publish in social media by probably 300 or 400 different tools that you can download in seconds. So don't be afraid of it. Just think about it as the new reading and writing. Think about it as the new paper. And if you can make that gap, then it will become a lot more natural.
You spoke about the necessity of coding for all professionals. And I know, I have done coding myself. So I know people tend to get put off by coding because they look at these complex scripts and they're hard to make sense of. But nowadays, modern softwares also have come with studio functionality. For instance, R has a studio, or a Cplex iLog has a studio. So if you are conceptually fundamentally strong, you don't really have to script anything. You just use the studio functionality and run the software. Does that lessen the fear or the intimidation of the technology to some extent?
Probably. I think the coding part is something that people at the beginning of their careers, or that are being reskilled into other areas, or are intellectually curious, could very well venture in regardless of where they are. So I just mentioned the ease of use of the video editing tools. You just translated that same analogy into coding itself, which has become simpler and simpler. But at the end of the day, I think the major benefit of coding for non-technical people is not the fact that they will actually code, because probably the applications are going to be minimum. I think it's a way of thinking. So let me get you to another of the non-favorite skills of many students: math. Some people love it, Some people hate it. It's like, look, I'm going to be doing management. Why do I need to know about calculus? And once you go through, advanced algebra or calculus, you realize that it helps you think differently. That once you see a challenge, you have a new glass, you have a new lens, and you're able to see kind of an X-ray of something that otherwise you don't. I see coding in the same way, and I invite people not to be afraid of it, even if it's just a teasing exercise, even if it's a little boot camp, because it will help you understand how the technology works in a way that is, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. So think about it as a way of thinking and not as a tool that you will be using.
That's well said. Now, I want to pick up on another point you made, that technology is actually disrupting all industries. On the other hand, we see growth of entrepreneurship and startups who basically aim to exploit these gaps in the industry structures. Does that mean that all entrepreneurs, regardless of what they want to do and which industry they want to operate in, should be very, very familiar with technologies and how they collide with the social or business or economic systems?
Let's think about what an entrepreneur does, okay? And the answer is everything. As an entrepreneur, one myself in the past, there is no escape but to do pretty much everything you have to do, from creating a product that is appealing. That's the very and most important thing, understanding, covering a need that is not previously covered, either by a product, a geography, or service, whatever it is, to forming a company, to creating your own marketing and advertising of that particular product and event, to keeping your books and accounting and your numbers. And number one, never run out of money. That's the number one element to your finances. Tell me any of those activities that would not require you to know some type of technology. If you're going to register a company, many of those transactions are electronic nowadays. If you're going to create a product, I doubt that a product will not have some type of technology element. Even if you are thinking on a very low-tech industry, maybe a restaurant or a food place, well, guess what? You have logistics on how to secure your food. You have processing capabilities. You have transaction tracking. So no matter what industry, your product will be affected by technology. Your service will be affected. Your marketing is going to be digital marketing in a good part. Yes, you can put signs and public advertising. So as an entrepreneur, I would say that it's paramount that you're skilled with technology, and there is no way to avoid it. To the point that is sometimes a little bit scary on how deep you need to go to be able to compete nowadays, because otherwise you'll be out compete and out of the market.
No, you brought in an important dimension of acquiring skills in digital age, which I had not heard earlier from anybody else. And those are when you spoke about acquiring personal skills, for instance, teamwork and collaboration, or because of the data flood, you have prioritization problems, analysis problems, and this whole thing about developing a social media personality, to be able to navigate or use the social media to create a persona to project yourself, which otherwise in the physical world we will project using social skills that we learn from childhood. So are these skills, they're not necessarily dependent on knowledge of technologies, but are people going to have to learn these skills differently? Does that mean the learning changes and teaching changes in the universities?
That's a very good point, which is how do we as educational institutions prepare our students to challenge, to face that future around soft skills, and in this case, digital soft skills. And I need to be honest, I don't think that we as a whole education industry have been doing a great job. If you think about programs, most of them are really towards technical skills. And if you see, oh, I'm going to take finance, accounting, human resources, check, 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 then I get a business degree. Yes, there are general education courses in some institutions that are more about critical thinking or academic writing. But yet, when we think about communications, leadership, teamwork, efficiency of work, so sometimes we like to say, well, it is embedded, it is a thread through the education, but in reality, I think that we are not doing a great job on measuring and truly impacting the results of those. But I wouldn't put the responsibility completely on the institutions. I think that we as individuals will always have the responsibility. I'm a firm believer on our responsibility of individuals towards ourselves and towards society. It's all about how we are responsible for our own destination and our own future. So imagine a student that went to a kindergarten, elementary school, a high school, a university, maybe a master's degree experience at another place, 1 job, 2 jobs, 10 jobs. Nowadays, people change jobs a lot more frequent than before. So you might end up with a person that might have hopped easily 10, 15 jobs. And that used to be unheard of, and now it's not that uncommon. All the way to freelancers that might have interacted with 40, 50, 70 companies easily in their careers. So as you as an individual develop these skills, you will be getting better on self-proficient on each one of these elements that we mentioned. Particularly, you mentioned social media, and I want to bring the concept of personal brand. Personal brand is something you start developing early in your career. Now, it used to be based mostly on networking, which means who you know and who those that you know. And that's still very important. I don't want to minimize the relevance of, if you know people that are in good positions, they can help you tremendously. Yet, nowadays, especially with the crowdsourcing capabilities of the jobs, the ability of a person to create their own persona, their own brand, all the way from a portfolio to LinkedIn, to their own social media, to their own areas of specialty, is becoming a lot more important. So I encourage everybody to really start developing their own digital persona and to be very protective of it, because it can be very positive and it can be very harmful. So be yourself, be authentic, but be aware of how you project yourself into society.
How important is it to form or belong to a digital community today?
That's that can vary. I think we all belong to digital communities without knowing it in many cases. So you might think of digital community as, oh, I'm going to go online and select a group and join that group, like, the LinkedIn groups of interests, or the Facebook groups of activities, or the meetup groups of social activities. I think that the difference between groups and digital groups is evaporating. Any type of group that you belong will have a digital means of existence. I don't know exactly how it works in India, but I know in many countries nowadays the family dynamics are managed digitally. So you interact with your family through WhatsApp or other messaging communications, in many cases more than face-to-face, to the fact that you're in different physical places, different cities. Now, what it used to be extended family that you used to see only once a year, you interact 300 to 300 times a day. So I think that the dynamics of groups are changing. So I wouldn't qualify a digital group as, oh, I need to go and subscribe to this particular activity. Is that it's going to naturally get into your life. And some of them, yes, is it important to participate in professional affiliation groups? Well, I think it produces a lot of value, but equal value is produced by your networks. I truly encourage people to look for mentors and to look for personal networks and to really invest their time to enrich those relationships. There are many people that helped me personally in my career as mentors, and it was not a coincidence. I actually proactively look for their advice, and I invest time into making sure that those who are in my network are aware of what I'm doing, and I'm somehow aware of what they are doing. So when we have a need, we can help each other. So that's the basic concept of society translated into groups, which nowadays interact honestly, mostly through digital means.
Well, I can tell you, India is not behind the world in any way, especially the urban India is exactly as you described, that we do far more collaboration within the families and friends through social media and WhatsApp and messaging. And somehow this kind of a messaging is limiting the need to be physically together also. So India is right there. I think we are almost to the end of this hour, so I will end with this question. What would you say should be top 1, 2, 3 kind of skills or perspectives I should have to join the digital movement? What skills should I have to get digital skills?
Well, we cover a whole portfolio. I'm going to summarize into a single skill, which is ability to change. Anything we learn today is going to evolve. It's going to change. Any medium that we use today is going to be replaced. It's going to be evolved, like literally, from MySpace to Facebook to Instagram to now WhatsApp. We moved ourselves as a crowd into these different channels, from memos to emails to now, group collaboration chats. These tools have evolved. So in order to really adopt and be part of the digital community, the most important skill is your ability to change and to not be afraid of understanding that something else is coming through. So I'm not going to focus on social media because tomorrow it won't be, or research or content or this or that. Is don't be afraid. Embrace change, and then your life will be a lot more successful. Happiness for your professional career, for your individual, and for your community. I truly encourage you to not be afraid and take the leap and explore. Try. Don't be shy. And if something doesn't work for you, it's going to work later. Try it one time, try it another time. That's the way we work. Trying iterations, always enhancing, always learning. We're all eternal learners. So I encourage you to have that behavior.
Emiliano, you made this complex topic de-layer into simple things that we all can understand. You made it sound very simple, and I'm sure it is not that complicated for most. But when you assemble it all together, it looks very, very big and complicated. So thank you for making it both sound simple and convincing us that this is something that we should do. So on behalf of the NorthCap University, let me thank you wholeheartedly for a very, very insightful session.
I just wanted to thank you for inviting me to talk. all the NorthCap University prospective students, faculty, collaborators. It's truly an honor to be working with you, to have this opportunity, and truly thankful for your time watching this chat, as I want to call it. And I invite you to face the future with a new lens. Thank you so much.